In the 2017 summer, Oklahoma City general manager Sam Presti took a calculated risk. He traded Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis to the Indiana Pacers for Paul George, who had 1 year left on his deal at the time, and made it clear that his preferred team was the Los Angeles Lakers once he was a free agent. Presti had a year to convince George that OKC was a great environment for winning basketball, and well, that gamble paid off. George signed a 4-year deal with the Thunder this past summer and is having the best season of his career. He is the frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year and has joined the MVP conversation. And not just the fake MVP discussion where everyone throws 10 names into the ring, he is legitimately in the MVP discussion behind Harden and Giannis. So with that, we're going to dive into the career year we have seen thus far from the man with 2 first names, Paul George. Paul George has always been known as an elite defender, but he has taken his level of play on that side of the floor to a whole nother stratosphere. As it stands right now, he is the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. He'll usually defend the opposing team's best player, he will close up passing lanes with his great anticipation and length, and his attentiveness and activity allows him to blow up any off-ball actions. Paul George leads the league in total steals, total loose balls recovered, and he is second in total deflections. That tells us 1, he's not only very active on the ball, but very active off of it, and 2, once he gets his hands on the ball, he is never going to give it back. Looking at his synergy stats, Paul George absolutely blows up pick and roll plays, isolation situations, and he is stellar at defending spot-up shooters, all of which are key elements to an offense. George has a mix of all the qualities that great perimeter defenders have had throughout history: length, size, athleticism, IQ, activity, and unique lateral quickness. All of that put together makes him a complete Kraken on defense, a big, long-limbed monster just waiting to completely ruin a possession for an opposing offense. This is very clearly the best season of Paul George's career, and while his defensive prowess has taken a very obvious leap, it might be the offensive end of the floor where he has seen an even bigger leap. For me, I think it starts with his three-point shooting. PG is shooting 39.5% from three-point land and is doing so on 9.7 attempts per game while making 3.9 of them per game. He is making them in all kinds of different ways, and it's opened up the rest of his offensive game. He is able to make threes in any scenario, catch and shoot, pull up, off screens, you name it. Paul George is deadly in any of these scenarios. It's no wonder he has increased his production in the pick and roll. Last year, PG ran pick and roll for 25% of his possessions and only averaged 0.89 points per possession. This year, he has run the same amount of pick and rolls as last year, but he has jumped up to 1.048 points per possession. Sure, part of it is because PG has also improved as a playmaker this year, but his ability to get his shot off in any situation and convert those attempts at a high clip has made him one of the more dynamic pick and roll players in the league, and one of the more dynamic offensive players point blank period. If you dig deeper, the only players in NBA history to have averaged 9 or more 3-point attempts per game while shooting at least 39% from that range for a season are Steph Curry and Paul George. By the way, Steph Curry has done this 4 freaking times. If you look across the board, Paul George has made a jump in a lot of categories. He is averaging a career-high 4.2 assists per game, he has taken more shots, more free throws, and he has a career-high true shooting percentage. All of that adds up to Paul George averaging a career-high 28.6 points per game, which is 9 points per game higher than his career average. I was a huge Paul George fan in the early stages of his career, especially after that 2011 summer where he grew from 6'8 to 6'10. I always felt like he had this offensive potential within him, and it makes me wonder how much better he would be at this point if he didn't spend a few years trying to get back to where he once was after that absolutely devastating leg injury. Russell Westbrook has been the barometer for the Thunder. His competitive nature, his attitude, and his moxie has rubbed off on his teammates, and it's definitely rubbed off on Paul George. He even mentioned it himself. But this season, PG has been the best player on the Thunder. His impact on both ends of the court have vaulted the Thunder into legitimate threat to the Warriors status, whatever that means. The Thunder's offense and defense is most dependent on PG. When he is on the court, the Thunder have a 112.1 offensive rating, and when he's off the court, court, the Thunder's offense becomes a clogged toilet with a lowly 98.4 offensive rating. On defense, it's kind of the same but not as dramatic. When PG is on the court, the Thunder have a 102.4 defensive rating, which would put them at the top of the league. That number, however, drops to 108.1 when PG is off the floor, which would put them around 11th overall. The Thunder have outscored opponents by 9.7 points per 100 possessions with PG. Without him, they get blasted in those non-PG minutes, getting outscored by 9.7 points per 100 possessions. That's a 19.4 differential, the biggest swing out of any player on the Thunder roster playing significant minutes. PG has also been a master at the end of close games. He has the second highest total points scored in the clutch, meaning the last 5 minutes of a game that are within 5 points or less, has made the second most free throws in the clutch, he is second in free throw percentage, and he has hit a few game winners. Oh, and if you're wondering, he's made clutch plays on defense, having the highest total steals in the clutch. I've always thought PG-13's quote-unquote lack of clutch play in the past has been overblown, but even I have to admit that going 0 for 14 on go-ahead shots with 10 seconds left before this season wasn't good on the optics side because of that corny Gatorade commercial.
Ball game.
With the smooth finish.
Real smooth.
When I released my James Harden video back in January, I said that a fully healthy Rockets team to me would still be the best team to challenge the Warriors in the Western Conference, and I still feel that way, but the Thunder might be right there. I like that they are long and athletic at every position in their starting lineup. They have good rotation players like Dennis Schroeder, Nerlens Noel, and the recent addition of Markieff Morris, and on top of that, they have 2 stars. When talking about a theoretical matchup with the Warriors, those roster qualities make up a solid formula that could have a chance at giving the champs some fits in a playoff series. A team that is great on defense that can switch everything, a point guard that can make Steph Curry work a little bit on defense, and a huge skilled center that can maul the Warriors on the boards. As for what to do about Kevin Durant, well, the Thunder have a dynamic two-way forward of their own to throw out there, and he has been playing like a Tier 1 superstar.